Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Alfred. This is the second video for 2022. So I've been reading this book for about three times. It's quite an interesting book. I read it last year, and also I've been reading it this year. And it's basically a story about Netflix, and everyone watches Netflix, so it really has a good story about them and how they started the company. And today I just want to tell you about 5 facts that you don't know about Netflix, and after that I will tell you more about the book as well and things that you can learn from the book, and hopefully you can look and buy this book somewhere depending on where you are. So fact number 1, actually Netflix was not the first idea for Mark and Reed, who are the founders of Netflix. So there are many ideas. First idea was actually selling customized baseball. Yeah, so back then, don't worry, that was a good idea actually back then, because it was a .com boom. Everyone was selling anything and everything. So some are doing actually diapers.com and many others. So come to think about it, it was not really a bad idea. The second one was doing sort of personalized shampoo sort of bottles, right? Yeah, that was actually so good. Then obviously they dismissed it. And then they went for surfboards. Yes, customized surfboard. Everyone was trying to do customized stuff. And this went on and on and on, just keep on throwing ideas left, right, center. Their 95th idea was actually customized dog food. Yes, pet food, dog food, yeah. That was also great, yeah. In fact, really, they just had so many ideas, but every day when they were going to work, they kept on changing these ideas and sort of knocking it down. Till one day, Reed, actually one of the founders, got slapped with $40 of fees by Blockbuster because of sort of taking back tips. You know, Blockbuster used to offer rental tips or movies where you could just go and rent a few movies and come back watch them. Back then there was VHS, if you know what VHS was. And so Reed got slapped with fees, and I thought, like, what if we started a company that actually sort of sent DVDs or movies, actually it was movies via VHS to homes without, of course, late fees. But there was one challenge. There was only VHS back then. So VHS was this big cassettes. If you don't know about them, it was big cassettes, and it was too expensive to send them via mail. Second was too expensive actually also to buy, and had so many challenges. So the idea was 50-50. So it's something they kept on sort of debating. Luckily at that time, and so sometimes also it's also a matter of luck, because luckily at that time there was sort of the advent of DVDs. And if you know the capacity of DVDs, could pack movie, and it was very sort of light, so you could actually send movies via mail using DVDs and probably pay around 30 cents in terms of postage. And I mean, the other challenge was that at that time also DVDs were new, so not anyone, in fact DVDs were mostly available in Japan, if you notice that, not that. So they had to find a way of actually trying to bring this technology here to and also validate the idea. So this company actually had different challenges, so it wasn't really a straightforward idea. So that was actually number 1. So number 1 was not the first idea, and that actually happens to many companies. We think that so normally ideas just fall from heaven and all of a sudden we just run with it and all be successful, right? Good. Number 2, the second thing was actually raising finance. I have faced big challenges when trying to raise finance. I can imagine how difficult it was back then to raise finance, because it was just the advent of startups and stuff like this. So I mean, from reading actually this book, it just shows you the typical challenges that you face in raising finance. In fact, when you went to the first guy, who was called Alexander, a typical European guy with a deep accent, they asked him if he could invest $25,000 into the company. This was Alexandria, if I got the name correctly. And after listening to them for a few minutes, the guy was like, "Stop it," and just banged the table. And he was like, "This is shit." Exactly. This is what he said. You can imagine how difficult it was as a founder when you have hopes and you go to someone who is trying to you want someone to invest in your company. This is very difficult. It's almost like, you could compare it to your first love or whatever it is, and first breakup or whatever it is. It's very, very tough. Obviously, sometimes it gets easier as you go to other founders and get no, but you just get the courage as well to continue. Eventually, actually, they were able to raise money from their mom. That was number one. And then number two, they were able to raise also from one of their former bosses. So raising finance was actually very difficult for them. Third point, believe it or not, that just almost a month to the launch, they didn't have a name for the company. And there's so many ideas from different employees. Take One, Take Two, Scene One, Cinema Center, Webflix, Netflix. Somehow they're trying to avoid something with Flix because it sounded like more of a porn channel with an X kind of a thing, X-ish. They almost went for Cinema Center, as I'd mentioned. Eventually, they decided to settle for Netflix. Yeah, although they were kind of half-hearted. So, hey, just so you know, it was difficult for them to launch, to get the name for the company. The fourth point is actually Blockbuster. Can you believe it? Can you imagine? Blockbuster refused to buy Netflix. So there was a time that Blockbuster first approached Netflix. Hey guys, would like to come and discuss and tell us more about your company. So Netflix guys were actually excited to go there because one, they had challenges in terms of different challenges back then in terms of cash flow and the rest. So they went to pitch to Blockbuster to actually sell the company to them. So it was actually Blockbuster who invited them. Anyway, eventually, when Reed mentioned the figure to the CEO of Blockbuster. In case you don't know about Blockbuster, by the way, Blockbuster was one of the, if not the biggest movie rental business back then. They had brick and mortar stores all across the US, all across the world. I remember back then going to different stores to actually rent movies from Blockbuster, whether it was VHS and then even DVDs. So really Blockbuster was huge back then. So when Reed mentioned that Netflix could potentially sell to Blockbuster for $50 million, I remember reading how Reed's expression was when he looked at the CEO, who almost laughed. His Blockbuster CEO almost laughed when Reed mentioned that figure. Eventually, Blockbuster rejected and said, "Hey, we're not going to buy you off. See you guys." I think that was the worst mistake ever, because down the line, Netflix became the biggest company, and eventually, Blockbuster went under bankruptcy. If I'm not wrong, I can't remember the year, but it went under bankruptcy. Hey, so that was a missed opportunity. A side story to this, if you actually read the book, there's a point also early on when they started, Jeff Bezos as well went in to pitch, actually invited Netflix to pitch so that he could buy Netflix, because at that time, Amazon, which is big in books, was looking to get into DVDs. So, but however, when I think Jeff Bezos' team, they mentioned that they were looking at an offer of around 14 to 16 million. I think that was the end of the story. So that was a missed opportunity for Amazon and a missed opportunity for Blockbuster. Probably now you'll be knowing about Blockbuster if you didn't know about Blockbuster. So the fifth point, which is actually a very funny one, is that Netflix at that time also actually mailed porn videos to their customers by mistake. Coincidentally, can you imagine? Coincidentally, at that time, it was actually the scandal of Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. So it's actually very funny and coincidental. I think it wasn't intentional from Netflix. Either way, Netflix managed to recover from the scandal, and here they are. So this is a very anyone actually who is doing startups and actually doing different things in business, you should actually try to buy this book, and I'll put a link down there as well where you can buy it in Amazon or whatever it is, and actually also supports this channel. This book kind of shows you the life cycle of a startup and how difficult it is, the challenges that they go through. It's challenges in terms of preparation, the challenges of things that you don't expect, the challenges that actually nobody knows anything. And that's really a fact, because sometimes you have all it figured out in your mind. You think about it like, yes, I'm going to do this. My business is going to be in 6 months. It's going to be like this or whatever the case. But you just don't know. All you have to do is actually try. And this is all about what's in this book. So every time I'll try to be reviewing, at least once a month or so, I'll try to review books or books that I've read and trying to give lessons from it. Hopefully we can all learn from each other. Hey, till then, I'll see you next time. Cheers.